Hi, I'm Kamali and welcome to Newsfeed. Today we're going to focus on one story which is really making a huge impact all around the world. George Floyd, his killing, what came next, and where we are now. Protests about racial injustice have a long and angry history in America, and how social media captured a side to these protests and demonstrations not seen on normal news bulletins. And top of our newsfeed, hashtag justice for George Floyd, hashtag I can't breathe. American cities are seeing thousands and thousands of people come out and raise their voices in anger at the killing of George Floyd. And alongside that street protest, social activism online is gaining strength, making sure that people don't forget George Floyd's name and remember where all this anger is coming from. Here's Adama.
America is burning again. Consecutive nights of protests, curfews in many cities, shops and businesses looted, at least 1,600 arrests, and the National Guard deployed across 15 states. These scenes are the result of a brutal killing, an assault many of us saw in a viral video. White police officer Derek Chauvin, with his knee on the neck of George Floyd, an African American arrested for allegedly using a fake $20 bill. His pleas of I can't breathe were ignored for the 8 minutes he was on the ground. He called for his mother before losing consciousness. Paramedics declared him dead on arrival at the hospital. Since then, almost all social media platforms have been filled with tributes, videos of protests, and posts highlighting racism in the US and beyond. Protesters say the charges of third-degree murder and manslaughter laid against Chauvin are a miscarriage of justice, and that the 3 other officers present that day should also be indicted. When it comes to police brutality, George Floyd's name is the latest to be memorialized through hashtag activism. The rise of the Black Lives Matter movement in the US has highlighted the abuse of power by law enforcement officers that stretches back to the days of Jim Crow. But we needn't go that far back. Floyd's killing came months after that of 26-year-old Breonna Taylor. She was shot dead in her home by Louisville police during a botched drug raid. Due to media pressure after Floyd's killing, the FBI says it will open an investigation into her death at the hands of police. These deaths, and the countless others, are a reminder of the ongoing issue of systemic racism. And that manifests itself in poor access to education, housing, and, as the coronavirus pandemic has shown, healthcare. Recent data from the Centers for Disease and Control shows African Americans continue to make up a disproportionate share of COVID-19 deaths in the US. Black Americans make up just 13% of the population, yet they account for nearly a quarter of all American deaths so far. Last year, the Pew Research Center conducted a study entitled Race in America. It suggests that not only do most Americans believe race relations are bad, but that they've worsened under President Donald Trump.
It's the new lynching, you know, and it's new coded language in the way that our president represents himself.
The protests against racial injustice are nothing new, but there is renewed anger online and offline that may raise conversations around race relations to a new level. However, until the US dismantles the structures that enforce inequality, the anger won't go away, even if the protests do, eventually.
Well, for a country founded on the back of black people, a people then systematically kept removed from the freedom and liberty that was written as part of that country's founding document, it's little wonder that there have been centuries of protest against that foundational hypocrisy and in favour of greater equality. And now much of those protests are captured on film.
We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality.
Rodney King, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Mike Brown Jr., Tamir Rice, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and now George Floyd. A long list that activists say is only going to get much longer. Since they were forced to America in the bowels of slave ships, black people have faced systemic and institutionalized racism. They have been victims of lynching and police brutality, underpinned by an ideology of white supremacy. The murders of leaders like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Medgar Evers happened more than half a century ago. They were huge moments in history, but did not bring the justice many sought. But today something is different. Most people have phones with cameras. Many suggest this era of video documenting of racist incidents began before mobile phones were widespread. In March 1991, a TV camera in a helicopter captured 4 LAPD officers beating Rodney King. This was one of the first viral police brutality videos. It led to an uprising which left at least 59 people dead. A year later, the officers were acquitted and the protests continued.
I just want to say, can we all get along?
Fast forward 2 decades and most people have the power to make these incidents historic, thanks to their camera phones and social media. In July 2014, an NYPD officer killed Eric Garner, sparking weeks of outrage. The officer was never convicted. He lost his job. A month later, a police officer called Darren Wilson killed 18-year-old Michael Brown, leading to the Ferguson uprising, which continued into 2015. Wilson was not charged and quit the force. But it's not just police violence that's captured. This year in February, Ahmaud Arbery was killed while he was jogging. The incident was filmed on a mobile phone. While the 2 men with the guns have been arrested and charged with murder, the person who recorded the assault has also been charged. While the Minneapolis uprising continues to inspire demonstrations, the question remains, what will change? The US has seen many days like today. What will tomorrow bring?
Well, police in some US cities and states have to wear body cameras. That's a ruling that came in after the killing of Michael Brown in 2014. But the problem is, sometimes the police officers don't turn those cameras on. So for many, the way of documenting this police brutality is through the mobile phone cameras that all of us carry. And while TV crews have been out there shooting much of what's happened in the past few days, a lot of material is only on social media and doesn't make it to broadcast news until now.
I made this sign because I realized that could have been me. That could have been me on the ground screaming, I can't breathe. You're 17.
Don't you dare! This is his car! This is his car!
Yeah, Black Lives Matter! Lives matter!
This is a coordinated activity happening across this nation, and so we are in a state of emergency. Black people are dying in a state of emergency.
This travesty has gone on for far too long, and now the people have had enough.
I took my helmet off and laid the batons down. I want to make this a parade, not a protest. You got little ones here, you got dogs, so what's up? So listen, I was just telling you, these cops love you.
Love you. Say something, Will. We love you too. We love you too. And we all love your colleagues, you know? So, no, but the guy I don't fuck with is over there. I fuck with you though.
Man, fuck him. I'm serious. People like you are important. A lot of people are pissed, and I get it, but people like you are important. Like, you need to run for office when you get older.
This is history in the making.
We need women of color in office. We need women of color in law enforcement. We need women of color in schools teaching. We need women of color, man. Definitely. Seriously.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. That means a lot, man. That means a lot.
Well, of course, this story has been playing out in countless posts on social media. Here's a look at some of the ones that we saw. Well, this tweet from Patrice Cullors, co-founder of the Black Lives Movement, says, "Let's be honest. Black pain, grief and rage are not only dismissed by elected officials, our response to those feelings are also criminalized. To feel is the most fundamental human desire, yet we are consistently punished for expressing our feelings and desires." Well, this was put up by Zach Borenstein, who asked people to look at the difference in the way that people are taking lives and saving lives addressed. On the left, he shows a heavily armed policeman. On the right, 3 nurses wearing bin bags as PPE. And corporations used this moment to make statements about the need for racial justice in the USA. Nike, Netflix and others posted on their social accounts to show what is happening in America is far bigger than one more killing, and it does need wholesale change.
We need justice for George Floyd. We all witnessed his murder in broad daylight. We're broken and we're disgusted. We cannot normalize this pain. Not only
And of course, celebrities have had their say. Beyonce put up this video, linked to a petition calling for the other officers involved in George Floyd's death to be charged. Taylor Swift used the moment to call out President Trump for his use of racially charged language around the looting, which happened in a few cities. Now, what's happened in America in the past few days is a historic moment. The killing of George Floyd has been seen around the world. Social media made sure of that. So this leaves America and Americans with a decision to make. Are they going to, after all of this is over, continue on the way they were? Or will politicians and leaders and people in normal society try and bring about consequential change? Change that is way bigger than just bringing charges against the other officers involved in George Floyd's killing. But it's not a bad place to start. Now, this all began, of course, with some powerful video, but we want to leave you today with some powerful still images which capture the grief, the resolve, the determination, the anger and the strength of people who are on the streets of America trying to bring about change. And that is all for today. Of course, this story will continue on in the days and months and perhaps years ahead. But thank you for watching this. If you want to get in touch and ask me anything about what you've seen so far, you'll find me on Twitter at Kamali Melbourne. If you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you again for being with us. Stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.